Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're locking on to a signal from the Delta Quadrant. We're exploring the Star Trek Voyager episode Initiations, Season 2.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we've gathered quite a bit of material. Reviews, like jammers, official sources like IMDb, Wikipedia, Memory Alpha.
Right, and also pulling from the M0V blog, Cinefantastique mentions, production background, fan discussions on places like Reddit and TMDB.
A real mix.
Exactly. Our mission really is to unpack this one. Look at the story, what the creators were aiming for, how people actually reacted to it, and, some of the interesting chats it started.
And the setup is key here, isn't it? You've got Chakotay trying to have this private moment, a spiritual ceremony for his dad.
Mm-hmm.
And just like that, solitude becomes conflict. He wanders into Kazon-Ogla territory completely by accident.
And becomes a target.
Becomes the target for this young Kazon, Kar. And it's not random. It's Kar's initiation rite.
Yeah.
He needs to kill a Federation enemy to become a warrior.
Wow. Talk about high stakes from minute one. A personal journey slammed right into a cultural ritual.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's get into that clash. Kar attacks, needs the kill for his rite of passage. But Chakotay, he doesn't play along in the expected way.
No, he disables Kar's ship, pulls him aboard his own shuttle, saves his life.
Which seems like the Federation thing to do, right? Preserve life. But for Kar.
It's disastrous, utterly disastrous. In Kazon culture, saving him like that, it denies him his chance at honor. They earn their names, they're standing through winning or dying honorably.
So being rescued is like the ultimate insult. No glory, no name.
Exactly. He's furious, distraught. His whole path to becoming someone in his society is just blocked by an act of mercy.
And that immediately throws the cultural difference into sharp focus. Life preservation versus, achieving status through combat, even fatal combat.
A really stark contrast.
Now, speaking of warrior codes, you almost can't talk Kazon without thinking Klingons. It comes up a lot in the reviews and comments we looked at.
Oh, definitely. The warrior focus, the honor thing.
Yeah.
The comparisons are pretty immediate for a lot of viewers.
It feels a bit like, okay, we need a tough warrior race. Let's tweak the Klingon model.
Well, that's the interesting part. The viewers saw that. Many call them warmed-over Klingons, intense, but maybe lacking the depth the Klingons eventually got.
Right.
But the production team, they actually intended something quite different. Michael Piller, one of the key figures, apparently envisioned them more like Los Angeles street gangs.
Street gangs in space.
Yeah, focusing on youth, territory, that kind of immediate, almost raw social structure. Less about ancient honor codes, more about survival and dominance in the here and now.
That's quite a different angle than space Vikings or Klingons.
It really is. They wanted a different kind of threat, driven by those more primal, immediate urges.
But as you said, that's not quite how it landed. The sources, Jammer's review included, show that warmed-over Klingon idea really stuck. People saw the aggression, the proving through combat.
But maybe missed that gang culture nuance they were aiming for. It seemed to lack the layers people associated with the Klingons, even the negative ones.
Someone joked they were Klingons who forgot their etiquette manual, which kind of sums up that feeling.
It really does. And it points to that challenge in sci-fi, doesn't it? How hard it is to break away from established tropes when you're creating something new. The audience brings expectations.
Yeah, that disconnect between intent and reception is fascinating. You try for something distinct, but the visual language, the behavior, it can snap right back to familiar patterns in the viewer's mind.
Exactly. Originality versus expectation. It's a constant tension.
So let's shift focus to the man in the middle of all this, Chakotay. Our sources suggest this episode was partly a vehicle for him, right? To give him more to do after maybe being a bit sidelined in Season 1.
That seems to be the case. Give him more action, more focus. And we see him trying to handle this incredibly tense situation using Federation principles. He's trying to de-escalate, understand Kar, maybe even teach him something.
But that approach wasn't universally loved.
No. Jammer's review highlights this, and others echoed it. Some found his pacifism, especially when directly attacked, a bit off, considering his background.
That was McKee's background, yeah. You'd think a former rebel might react with a bit more force or tactical thinking.
That was the argument, and it touches on this internal debate about his character that was apparently happening behind the scenes. Wikipedia mentions producer Winrich Colby leaning more towards the Maquis' action side.
While this episode clearly emphasizes the Native American spiritual heritage with the whole Pakra ceremony setting things off.
Precisely. So there were different ideas about which aspect of Chakotay should be foregrounded. And you can kind of feel that tension in the portrayal sometimes.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
An audience reaction reflects that split, too. Some people connected with the spiritual angle, maybe seeing that parallel between Kazan history, being oppressed by the tribe, and indigenous histories.
Right, a potential bridge through shared experience, perhaps.
But others just saw the non-violence here as inconsistent with the guy who fought the Cardassians. It raises that question. How do you blend these different parts of a character convincingly?
It's tricky. Very tricky.
Okay, let's talk about Kar, the young Kazan, played by Aaron Eisenberg. Now, he's Nog from Deep Space Nine, right? Instantly recognizable to fans.
He is. And generally, his performance gets good marks. People commenting on Jammer's reviews, for instance, thought he did a good job portraying that angry, conflicted young man.
Yeah, he really sells Kar's intensity and that internal struggle.
Definitely a strong performance. But, and it's a big but, the casting itself was a problem for a lot of people.
Because he was Nog.
Exactly. Wikipedia and Memory Alpha both point out that even the exec producers later admitted it was probably a mistake. Jerry Taylor said people weren't seeing a young man in pain, they were seeing Nog from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, I can totally see that. You're invested in this Voyager story, this Kazan ritual, and then suddenly your brain goes, wait, isn't that the Ferengi who hangs out with Jake Sisko?
It breaks the immersion. It pulls you right out. Several reviews, like the ones from Cinefantastique and David McEntee quoted on Wikipedia, specifically mention his familiarity as a negative factor.
Even with the Kazan makeup?
Apparently not enough. Taylor and Piller acknowledged that while the prosthetics were meant to disguise him, his voice is just too distinctive for fans of both shows.
Wow. It shows how much those casting choices matter, even down to the voice. It can really affect how an audience connects or disconnects with a story.
A definite unintended consequence there.
So quick plot recap then. Chakotay's shuttle gets damaged, no comms. Voyager realizes he's missed the rendezvous, starts searching.
Chakotay and Kar get captured by the main Kazan group led by Razik. Razik basically lays it out. Kar failed, no name, maybe even execution.
Then Chakotay tries that hostage gambit with Razik to escape with Kar. Doesn't quite work out his plan.
Nope. They end up stranded on that Kazan training moon. Booby traps everywhere.
Meanwhile, Janeway, Tuvok, Kel's beamed down to investigate, run into Razik, and another Kazan, Haliz, who pretend to help but obviously aren't. Classic Kazan deception.
Pretty much. And then you get that crucial scene where Kar has Chakotay dead to rights, sleeping, but he can't do it. He hesitates.
A flicker of something else there. And we also learn about the Kazan backstory overthrowing the Trabe, who had enslaved them, explains how they got the tech.
Gives them a bit more depth than just space thugs, and then the climax. Kar turns on Razik, kills him. Big power shift within that Kazan sect.
And Chakotay gets beamed back just in time, leaving Kar in this completely new, uncertain position.
Yeah. And all these plot points touch on bigger themes, don't they? The coming-of-age stuff, the honor culture.
The clash between Federation ideals and the Kazan way.
That hint of connection between Kar and Chakotay, despite everything. And that potential parallel we mentioned between Chakotay's background and the Kazan's history of oppression.
Plus, you've got Chakotay, just by being there in a Starfleet uniform, representing this powerful, advanced civilization. It kind of brushes up against ideas of cultural imperialism, maybe unintentionally.
That's a good point. The Kazan resentment of Federation tech, tied to their own past with the tribe, adds another layer to why they're so hostile. It's not just random aggression.
So, looking at how Initiations was received overall, definitely a mixed bag.
Seems so. Some people like that it tried to flesh out the Kazan, give them some history.
But others, yeah, found it derivative, maybe some plot holes bothered them, and definitely the Aaron Eisenberg casting distraction we talked about.
That warmed over Klingon tag lingered for sure. Jammer's review, again, really hit on that point about Chakotay's pacifism feeling maybe inconsistent with Starfleet or his Maku's past.
And the ROV blog review brought up how that whole LA street gang analogy felt maybe poorly handled and potentially problematic for some critics.
Yeah, that reading was definitely out there.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't all negative feedback.
No, Robert Beltran, Chakotay himself, apparently felt it was important for his character, and Jerry Taylor thought it worked reasonably well. So, differing opinions even among those involved.
Well, wait.
So, wrapping up our deep dive on Initiations, it was an episode with ambition, you know, trying to deepen the Kazan spotlight Chakotay.
But it ran into trouble. Making the Kazan feel truly distinct from Klingons was a challenge, and the casting choice while delivering a strong performance from Eisenberg just created too much static for a lot of viewers.
Still, it touched on some interesting stuff: cultural values, honor, first contact problems, even if the final product felt a bit uneven to many.
Which leads us to a final thought for our listeners. When you look at the struggle the creators had defining the Kazon, trying to use these real-world analogies like gang culture, what does that reveal about the difficulty of creating truly alien aliens in sci-fi and exploring complex themes without falling back on easy comparisons?
And maybe also, how much does our own baggage as viewers, knowing actors from other roles, knowing the established lore, affect how we experience and judge these new stories? Something to think about next time you encounter a familiar face in an unexpected place in the galaxy.